stream, so it should pop in just a second. I'll verify with the community that they can hear us. And everybody, give us a thumbs up if you mess up. Okay, good. We're live, guys. The great George Wiseman. I'm going to go ahead and you can hear us. We're live, guys. There we go. There we go. There's what I was waiting for, Bear.
I know you were. I didn't want to disappoint you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and push record and fire this bad boy up. 2 seconds here. Hey, everybody in the chat. Got George Wiseman here gonna nerd out on some Brown's gas today. Super pumped. Just want to get my copy up. The introduction. How's everybody doing out there? I forgot to set up the Odyssey stream today. I'm sorry. I will have the replay on Odyssey. Right now we're on unite.live. We are on YouTube and we are on DLive and I believe Facebook. Maybe not Facebook. I don't know if we're having some issues with them of late, which is fine. I want to be off the beast system anyways. Loose tubes enough as it is. So, okay, here we go. I'm gonna hit record. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with the wonderful, beloved Dr. Bear Paul Lando. Without him, we wouldn't have Alfa Vedic and everything we're doing. So there he is, Bear Lando, coming to you live and direct from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom always reigns supreme. We've got a very special guest today, George Wiseman. Someone we've been very, very excited about getting on the show for a while now, as we are huge fans of his AquaCure machine and everything he's doing with that technology. We are very, very, very happy to have him on the show today. Yeah, Bear, any other news real quick before we have George come on in terms of stuff going on in the farm? Anything to up-to-date folks on out there?
Well, a lot going on, but I'm going to reserve that for another time because our audience just wants to get into it with George here, I know. And that's very humble of you, your opening statements, Michael, because we all know that the present form of Alfa Vedic wouldn't exist without you either. So thank you for those comments. And George, so amazing to have you here today. I'm going to let Mike do a little intro, and then I'll jump in, and then we'll hear from you for the rest of the time here.
Hey, I'm the anode to your cathode, can I say? Hydrogen, the breath of God. AquaCure inventor George Wiseman joins us today to discuss why hydrogen for health is fast becoming one of the most important innovations of all time. Why is hydrogen referred to as the God molecule? This will be the subject of this Alfacast, and what inventor George Wiseman will share could very well be a game changer for your personal health and well-being. George grew up as a cowboy in British Columbia. Yes, they do have cowboys in Canada, where hard work and jack-of-all-trades skills weren't an option. His upbringing parlayed perfectly into a knack for inventiveness and future innovations that would improve the quality of life for thousands and generations to come. Quote, 62% of the human body is hydrogen, and most of the ailments of man are either caused by or exacerbated by hydrogen deficiency. George began working with Brown's gas in 1986 and has since developed technologies that make use of this miraculous gas for fuel-saving torch fuel gas and radioactive neutralization. What's more, his inventions are patent-free. I'm all about that. So his knowledge remains readily available to anyone wishing to duplicate his creations. George has become an expert in Brown's gas, also known as HHO or hydroxy, with a primary focus on the industrial and energy-saving aspects that would eventually lead to the realization of the astonishing health benefits that occur when inhaled and drinking infused water. Compromised energy reserves lead to illness, but Brown's gas solves this energy crisis. Mr. Wiseman's current focus for the application of Brown's gas is hydroxy for health, and his practical and safe technology is fast becoming one of the most important innovations of all time. And I see you gentlemen are tapped in, Bear Lando. I'm going to throw mine on right now.
Please join us. It's very rude for you to not be
I'm
snorting
gonna.
hydrogen with
I don't know if you guys are all on 432, but I'm going to go to 528 right now just to change things up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Should we all be on the same frequency there?
Well, maybe if you guys are on 432, I'll stay on 432. We should be on the same frequency, so we're in resonance, I guess.
And we'll let George explain what all that means. And for anybody who doesn't know what we're doing here with nasal cannulas, it's not that you have 3 folks suffering from emphysema all at the same time. This is George's AquaCure machine. George, so again, to repeat, so wonderful to have you here. We're truly honored. You've made such a difference in the world. And, I spent my life in the health field, just trying to help folks with their physical health. And I really believe the AquaCure machine is, and Brown's gas is the most fundamental thing that people can do. I still get questions, even though I haven't been in practice for a while, people saying, what should I be doing? And I really think this is so foundational that no matter what else you're doing, start with this no matter what. And for all you preppers out there, if you're preparing for whatever we think is what's to come here or already upon us, this would be the #1 appliance I would have in any household. If you ask me, if I had to choose between my refrigerator and my hydroxy machine, I'd take the AquaCure. It's my most prized possession right now. I have 2 of them, one up by our bedside that my wife and myself use morning and night. And then I have one right down here in our business center, for myself and everyone to use so that we can be around at all time. So, George, it really catches my attention because of things that I'm involved with is when I've heard you and other people reference hydrogen as the breath of God or the God molecule. And I really believe that's to be true. And I do a lot of dabbling, we'll say, in chemistry. That's more my field, not engineering and inventing like you do. And in my chemistry lab, I really incorporate old school methods that we can loosely call alchemy, but is true science, complete science that has been deliberately, let's just say, prevented from entering our university curriculums, suppressed. And in that, we appreciate that there is another whole level of intelligence that used to be called the ether. It doesn't matter. But just for the purposes of the point I'm trying to make is in that whole process, which requires that you believe in a higher intelligence. That's what leaves a lot of conventional scientists kind of out in left field there. There's this whole descending coagulation of these elements that finally precipitates into matter. And they used to think about them in terms of elements, fire, oxygen and water and earth and air and so forth. But, in more conventional understanding or contemporaneous understanding, the first one we'll talk about fire, the fire element, which is what initiates our world from that original idea, the creator, is actually hydrogen. And then it escalates or descends down into the next level of air, which is nitrogen, which creates a coagulation or fermentation in the atmosphere, then binds with oxygen, and then becomes, everything that we're talking about today. And you're going to tell us about the plasma state of water being the true, 4th stage of water. And I really believe if we go into some old school understanding too, it's going to tell us a lot about what that plasma state is on that energetic level. Another thing I'd like to say about hydrogen, if we get into Walter Russell's work, he understood hydrogen not as a single element, but as a whole octave of 7 different tonal fields. And he stated, and I agree with him, and if you jump into his work, it makes more sense than what I learned in school, I think. And he talks about, our concept of hydrogen as just a single element is really goes contrary to the laws of nature. And so when you understand that hydrogen is a gateway into 7 different octaves of hydrogen, I think also that gives us, or not octaves, but 7 different tonal fields of hydrogen. I think that might give us some clues as far as how hydrogen really works in our universe, and would give us more indication of, what that plasma state, forced state of water actually is. So let's hear it more from your mouth, though, as far as maybe start with a little bit of a background as far as how you got into all this. A lot of us already know your story, but for anybody new in the audience, and then we just want to get into the applications of your inventions. So again, thank you so much for being here, and take it away.
Wow, it's almost like you guys have given such a good introduction. I don't have much else to say, but I think we'll figure it out. I really appreciate your giving me time on your platform so that we can help a lot more people. And I'll talk about that a little bit as we proceed as well. As Mike was saying, I grew up on a cattle ranch. I was actually born in Montana and on a small farm there. We always had horses and cattle and such. And then
whereabouts in Montana, George? Just curious. My dad grew up in
I was
Montana.
born in Missoula, and we
So
spent
was my dad
in Lewistown.
Oh, wow.
So
I wonder if you know my father. He was maybe a little older than you, but born in Missoula, went to Hellgate High.
I think we left Missoula when I was 7, and we're living in Lewistown for a few years, and then we moved to Oregon and then Alaska. So I had my early childhood was quite eclectic. My father worked as a Bureau of Land Management range conservationist. He was going to forestry college in Missoula University there when I was born.
Beautiful
Any
place.
case, during that time, he was buying. He had gone hunting in Alaska, British Columbia for moose, and happened to come across places where he could buy land at $2,000 per quarter section for 180 acres, $2,000. So he bought on his wages, working for the government. He bought a bunch of parcels together and started to create a ranch. And then we'd spend summers there and winters wherever he happened to be working. And so as I was growing up, I was actually making fence lines and herding cattle and all of that kind of thing. Now, we were way into the bushes in the middle of British Columbia. There was no electricity. We didn't have any running water. We actually lived in an old trapper's cabin that became the ranch house. It was built in the 1800s sometime, all hand-hewn log structure kind of thing. And I have lots of stories about when I was growing up and the various things that happened when you're so far back in the bush with absolutely no help from police or firemen or veterinarians or doctors or anything. If anything happened, it was you and your neighbors, and that was it. So one of the most important things I learned when I was growing up, first of all, to be self-reliant, but also to help your neighbor. We didn't lock any doors, we left keys in the ignitions of the vehicle. If somebody came by and needed something, they only borrowed it if they needed it, and then they replaced it as soon as possible. We all helped each other whatever way we could. And that was the difference between life and death in a lot of cases, when you're out there and your nearest neighbor is a mile away. So this is the way that I grew up. And now, of course, when I was in civilization, going to school in the winter times, I had access to electricity and toilets and such. I knew how to turn on a light switch. But when we were out on the ranch, it was MacGyver all the way. You were doing what you could with what you had, and that was it. And so I essentially became a jack of all trades because of the way I grew up, but also because of the way my brain is wired. I'm a little crazy that way. They gave me an IQ test when I went to college for automotive mechanics, and they gave 20 questions and 5 minutes to answer them. I answered them all in 2.5 minutes. Turns out no one in the history of the college had ever answered all those questions or completed the test. So essentially my mechanical IQ was off their scale. So that just gives you a bit of a background on where I came from, and I like I say, I'm a jack of all trades skill. So when I got older, it was a tradition in our family that the children, when they got old enough, would be kicked out of the house and essentially, my father would say, a boot in the ass and $100 and you're on your own kind of thing. The idea being that you learn to do things on your own. If you came back to the ranch after, which I did after I went to agriculture college as well, you knew what was going on. You didn't just live in your parents' basement like a lot of kids today do. So again, different times, different way of growing up. And I was happy. My grandfather gave me $100 as well, and that allowed me to travel in my 1966 Ford pickup truck down to where he was in my grandfather's house, and I stayed with my grandma and grandpa for about 6 months while I worked for 2 jobs. I went into and those were the first jobs I'd ever had that weren't working on the ranch kind of thing, or working for a ranch neighbor. And they had an 11% unemployment rate, but when I went into the town, I had 2 jobs within a week. So I was working days as a pump jockey and nights in a plastic factory. And I did really well in those cases because I had a really good work ethic. What's a coffee break? I just want a coffee break. I made some of the other employees unhappy because they thought I was showing them up, like, not showing up for a coffee break. I didn't have any clue such thing. So anyway, I made enough money that I could continue traveling, and I kind of hoboed around the States in my little pickup truck, visiting relatives and such. And then I came back to the ranch, and then got a scholarship and went off to agriculture college. And that's where I met my first wife, and we go on from there. In any case, when I left the ranch, I didn't have any money to speak of, and I was interested in girls. I was wanting to meet women, and when I was on the ranch, I had very little opportunity to even date anyone when I was going to high school and such, because you pretty much had to, it was an hour bus ride to get to the ranch from the little country school that I was going to. And by the time what we would do is we'd get up in the morning and we'd ski or snowshoe over to wherever the haystack was to feed the cattle, and you'd fork out about 4 tons of hay by hand, myself and my brothers. Then we'd ski back to the ranch house, which was lit with candles or a lamp or something, and get ready for school and walk a few hundred yards to the end of the driveway where the bus would pick us up, take us an hour to get to school, and then we'd have school. I love school, by the way, because in school you didn't have to work so dang hard. And so I did all the science courses and everything. I just enjoyed learning. And then they'd put you back on the bus and send you back, and it's dark again, but you still have to go out there and feed the cattle again at night, and then go to bed and get up the next morning and do the same thing again. So that was pretty much our winter times. But so I didn't have a chance. There was no after school activities or even visiting neighbors that had girls or anything, really. There was very little contact with anybody outside the family when you're growing up like that. So when I was out with my pickup truck, I was thinking, how do I meet girls? I could see that girls liked money. Okay, this is the way I grew up. Okay. I didn't realize there's a whole lot of other stuff involved in a relationship.
I'm enjoying this a lot, George, because I would have always loved to have told my kids I walked to school in the snow every day, but I grew up on the West Coast, so I couldn't pull that one. But it was definitely different times back then. And I think the average kid now would mutiny in about 2 seconds if they had to deal with what you did every day.
Yeah, back in those days, they still had rulers that they slap your hand with, or if you went to the principal's office, he had the paddle, Yeah, they stopped all that stuff too. And anyway, and my dad was a big believer in warming the posterior to stimulate blood flow to the brain as well. And while I probably didn't appreciate it at the time, especially when he would say something like, "This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you," I think that can't be true. Till I had kids. Then I understood. It's very difficult to have to discipline your kids, even if it is something like taking away their iPod or cell phone these days. It's you don't want to do it, but you have to. There has to be some sort of consequences. In any case, back to girls. So I figured that I could be an inventor or a prospector. I figured those are 2 ways to make money. And prospecting, I did it for a while. I took a course in prospecting and I learned a lot, and it's really helped me in a lot of different ways. All my trainings, my self-taught, my mechanics training. I'm a certified automotive technician. My farm management training when I went to college, so I could look after a ranch or virtually anything. I could do aquaponics or trees. Yes. So I had the anyway, but it was a lot of work. Looking for ore and stuff on, and I thought, I don't want to work so hard. So I thought I'd use my brain a little more and be an inventor. And after I had married and settled down, I started my own business called Eagle Research, so I could write off my expenses, inventing expenses. And I almost immediately, I stumbled upon a way of increasing the fuel mileage of automobiles. And so I kind of made a business of that. That first device was called a carburetor enhancer. And like I say, it was totally at first stumbled upon, and then I replicated it on purpose accidentally. There's a whole story there as well. But so I started installing these on vehicles, and I had people scheduled to come in and have an installation for 6 weeks in advance. And I was approached by one of these late night talk show thing or sales show things. So but wait, there's more, the old time thing. And they were all interested. They even made a commercial for it. And then they realized that for $15 worth of parts in a hardware store, anybody could do this to their own vehicle. And they said, no, there's no patent. There's no way we can control it. People can bypass us. We don't want to sell your device. So I'm sitting there thinking, if anybody can do it, why don't I just start a mail order business selling a book that tells people how to do it? By this time, I had already done a lot of research in previous fuel saver patents. I researched back in the library, in the patent library, to 1975, because that's all I had time for at that particular time. And I found 5,000 fuel saver patents. Okay, so just going back 10 years from 85 to 75, I found 5,000 fuel saver patents.
Wow.
Not one of which was on the market. So I thought, you know what? I'm making a good living installing these things. I installed hundreds of them. I'm just going to write it, but I can't install them in every vehicle in the world. There's what, 1 billion vehicles. So I said, okay, what I'll do is I'll write a book and teach people how to do it, sell the book by mail. I did really well with that. My first book was only 10 pages, and it eventually became 30 pages as I answered customer questions and modified the book. So that was a carburetor enhancer manual. And it did really well, to the point where several people started their own businesses like mine. There was one particular guy, he lived a few hundred miles away from me, that I think he had 2 shops. He put mechanics in and started installing in his little town, and installed probably one in most of the vehicles in the town. And then he retired, bought an RV, drove to my house, shook my hand, said, see that RV? I bought that with the, and now I've retired. I'm just going to be traveling around and enjoying my life. He retired from and what I made on that sale, $4. But I made $4 200,000 times. Okay. So that I did okay.
What year was that in, George?
That was he came to me. What would that be? In about 19. Get my where I was kind of thing. In about 1989, I think about 1989, he came to me. Yeah.
Okay, so that's about $24 now.
Yeah.
Taking inflation.
Yes. Yeah, so I pretty much just invested my money back into my research. My Brown's gas research, I calculated a couple of years ago, I've probably spent about $2 million of my own money in Brown's gas related things. In addition to gathering information from around the world and a lot of very smart people, some of them smarter than me. For example, William Rhodes, back in the early 1960s, now, he was literally a rocket scientist, and up until in his 90s, he died. He was still helping NASA with various projects that he was doing, and he had like 100 patents to his name. Anyway, when I was down there in Arizona, I met up with him, and he and I got along really well. It turns out that I had pretty much duplicated his research in the 60s myself in my own lab, and came up with essentially the same conclusions. His notes and mine almost matched perfectly, and he had let me copy his notes, which was a very interesting thing. Not very many inventors would do that, but he did. So what I'm saying is, and I learned some things from him, and he learned some things from me. So a lot of smart people have collaborated to learn what we've learned along the way. So in the early 1990s, I wrote the Brown's Gas Book 1, which had some interesting theories, which turned out to be incorrect. The conclusions are pretty much correct, but the theory wasn't correct. Like I had things I could observe were happening, like I was making more gas than I should. If you look at the Faraday equations, you put a certain amount of amperage in a machine, in an electrolyzer, it should split a certain amount of water, so you get a certain amount of gas. So you get this amount of amperage in, you get that amount of gas out. That's the way it should be every time, no question. And there's only 100%, which most electrolyzers don't get 100% because there's inefficiencies in one way or another. I was getting 130% gas, a Faraday equation.
Mm-hmm.
So
George, would you
Go ahead.
mind, just for our audience, just to get a definition of what Brown's gas is, so we can kind of have a base place we're coming from there, and then also curious if you knew Yule Brown and the namesake of the gas, and were you calling it Brown's gas in that paper that you're talking about here?
Yes.
But that might help some of the audience just to have a base definition of what Brown's gas is.
Okay. Brown's gas, I have a place on my website called What is Brown's Gas? So people can go and look and see everything all laid out in what is happening. But my short definition is Brown's gas is the entire gaseous mixture that evolves from an electrolyzer specifically designed not to separate the gases. So what happens is most Faraday electrolyzers have a membrane in the middle between the anode and cathode, the anode making oxygen, the cathode making hydrogen, and this membrane prevents the two gases from mixing. So your hydrogen comes out one hose and the oxygen comes out the other hose. Now, William Rhodes eliminated the membrane back in the 60s, and so did I, and he called it single ducted gas, meaning that the entire gaseous mixture came out the one hose. Now, which is what the Brown's gas electrolyzers do. It turns out that when you do it that way, when you don't have a membrane in between the two electrodes, something called an electron bridge is formed. And that was, nobody ever saw the electron bridge until 2019. I was introduced to it when I was speaking at a water conference in Bad Soden, Germany. The speaker just before me described this electron bridge in his electrolysis experiments, and I said, that's it.
Yeah, I saw that. I recently watched your stage talk there. It's a great one, guys. We can put the link in the show notes below.
Excellent. So in any case, that's what happened. Was I found out about the electron bridge, but I had theorized that something like that had to exist beforehand, because I built electrolyzers that were transparent, and I could see a third gas coming out of the center of the fluid between the two electrodes, between the anode and cathode. Somewhere in the middle of it, there was a third gas coming out, the line of bubbles being so dense that it almost looked like another electrode in and of itself. So just as much gas was coming out of the center of the electrolysis machine or cell as was coming off the anode, which would be the oxygen, or the cathode, which would have been the hydrogen. So this third gas in the middle, I theorized to be something I called electrically expanded water. Now, at that point, I wasn't realizing it was actually the plasma form of water, a negatively charged plasma form of water, which is what it actually is. But I called it electrically expanded water because I theorized that the water was absorbing electrons similar to a sponge absorbing water. And when it would get swelled up to a certain point, full of energy, it would turn into a gaseous form of water that was not water vapor or steam. If you condense this electrically expanded water, or sorry, cool it, it does not condense. Like water vapor or steam with thermal energy will condense when you take that thermal energy away. It'll condense into a liquid. But this electrically expanded water, if you cool it, it doesn't condense.
So molecularly, it's something completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
Than water vapor or steam. So it's a gaseous form of water. Now, why that's important with Brown's gas is now we've got the three gases coming out. You've got your oxygen, you've got your hydrogen, and you've got the electrically expanded water, all coming out the same tube, which we are inhaling in all three of our little Brown's gas machines right now. Okay. The electrically expanded water is important for health because the electrons are bioavailable. And it's really important. Hydrogen is good. Hydrogen supplementation is essential these days for many reasons we can get into in a little bit later if necessary. But when you add the electrically expanded water to it, you get a whole nother realm, and it's looking like about 30% more therapeutic efficacy. So whatever hydrogen can do, the Brown's gas does about 30% better as far as health is concerned. Because when the body is sick or has ailments, usually the energy reserves have been depleted and the energy generation systems have been compromised. So the body has very low energy state when it gets sick and needs energy to get well. And hydrogen does nothing. Hydrogen is totally inert by itself. It's like a pile of bricks sitting in the woods. You wouldn't expect a pilot to come back in 2 years and see a pile of bricks built into a brick house. Somebody has to take those bricks and place them intelligently. And the body knows how to do that. So when you get the hydrogen, which is essentially nutrition, because as it was said, our bodies are 62% hydrogen by volume, not by weight, but by volume, 62% hydrogen. Everything in our body, every chemical process, everything that we're built from, everything depends on hydrogen directly or indirectly. So our bodies know how to heal. And when we get the nutrition necessary to do so, the body puts the building blocks where it needs to go. So for example, I had scars on my body. One here on my forehead, which is about a half an inch or a centimeter square, where I'd been doing a stupid thing with an air wrench, and I hadn't put an actual air wrench socket on it. I put a regular socket on it, and I saw it wiggle twice and then slam me in the forehead. There was blood everywhere. It wasn't pretty. But anyway, I ended up with a scar from that. And that scar has disappeared, along with most of the other scars on my body and a lot of other things that have happened to increase my health. But in any case, my point is that my body was hydrogen deficient at the time, and I was living on the ranch. I was living a good life with my mom had a half an acre garden. And we were growing all our peas and carrots and celery and rhubarb and just everything that they were growing out there. So I was eating straight from the earth for the most part. We only went to town once, and it wasn't us boys or anything. It was just dad and maybe mom would go to town once a month to pick up anything that was happened to be needed. But for the most part, we ate wild game and we didn't eat beef. We grew beef, but we didn't eat beef because that we could sell that for money, right? So we'd eat deer and elk and moose and don't eat beaver. Beaver tastes like wood. I'll just give you that tip.
Never had a beaver burger.
Yeah. So back to the healing. What happens is, if you're hydrogen deficient, your body knows how to keep itself alive. Like, just another example is if you're out in the cold and you're getting hypothermia, your body will shut down blood flow to your extremities to preserve core temperature. Now, your body, if it doesn't have enough nutrition, like hydrogen, it starts shutting down extraneous systems that aren't immediately life-threatening. One of which is your body's regeneration systems, like stem cells and such. So instead of healing the skin, it just put a patch on it so I wouldn't bleed out, so that I had that scar. Once my body had enough nutrition that it could go back and heal that, it did. My scar disappeared because my body now has the nutrition necessary to make that go away. And I have many other things that happened. And I'll just go down the hierarchy a little bit. We have the regeneration systems. The next thing the body starts shutting down is the immune systems. The body has many different kinds of immune systems, but if it doesn't have enough nutrition to support those and life, it starts shutting them off. And so people get sick easier, and they and of all different kinds of things that they wouldn't get sick with if they had enough nutrition. And then if you still don't have enough hydrogen, your organs start to fail and you die. So you want to get your hydrogen supplementation at least. Now, I don't have time to go into all of the different kinds of hydrogen machines, and I just go with the Brown's gas machine because, again, my time is limited. So I just go with the top tier, which has the electrically expanded water in addition to the hydrogen. So that gives you a bit of an idea of what Brown's gas is and why it's important in our conversations here. As for your
fantastic,
Brown, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to make a quick comment. I don't want to hold that thought real quick. I know you'll probably get into it, but our gut, when we digest food, that's where microbes and the interaction with the nutrition make hydrogen internally in our bodies. And the only, and you can expand on that if you care to, but the point is people's guts are in horrible shape these days with the advent of overuse of antibiotics, and also with a lot of the biotoxins that are inundating our ecology, our foodstuffs. It's really denuded our gut ecology, so that really compromised hydrogen production. And I'm really glad you're going into a more of a differentiation between hydrogen and Brown's gas, because you're very generous, and it's not a competition for you at all as far as other units on the market. And you're always careful to say that hydrogen is very beneficial, but there are a lot of comments out there made by people, that mean well, I'm sure, but they represent different technologies. So they will kind of oversell, one thing, maybe with different interest involved. So it's really important that people understand the difference between Brown's gas and the addition of electrons. So please, sorry for the interruption.
Yes, I have another in my frequently asked questions page on my website, one that says, what's the best way to get hydrogen into my body? And I compare 9 different technologies. So if people want to get educated and know what the best way for them, like there may be times when a hydrogen machine is better than a Brown's gas machine, because, for example, Brown's gas machines have more maintenance. You're gonna have to clean it out because of the sludge that's formed. It requires, now the machines I build require you tip it over, and it weighs about 16 pounds. So you got to lift it, and there's certain amount of maintenance is required with the Brown's gas that isn't necessarily required with a lot of the hydrogen only generation machines, like the PEM technology. But there's the care and feeding and maintenance of any of these technologies. You have to be careful, or you can destroy them in a hurry. For example, the PEM machines, you still have to put in as pure distilled water as possible. No anything, you can't just put in tap water, because the PEM membrane will be, or SPE, whichever they're calling it, solid polymer electrolyte, has teeny micropores in it, and they'll get destroyed really quickly or plugged if there's any impurities in the water. Plus the various metals that they use in them can get eroded away because they have to use fairly high voltages per cell. So they have a limited lifespan, which is one of the advantages of the AquaCure, for example. It should last a minimum of 20 years. Whereas these PEM technologies, if they go 3 or 4 years, that's really good. But only if you care and maintain it well. Some people can destroy it within 10 hours if they're putting in, like, they think, oh, I'm going to put in some sea salt in there to help the process along or something. Oh boy, yeah, game over. So in any case, getting back to the gut, I absolutely agree. It's the microbiome in the gut. People doesn't need to know, but it's good to know, where do we get our hydrogen from? Like, we can't inhale it like oxygen. Where if it's so important and it comes from God, where do we get it? Because I do believe it's the God molecule as well, because the hydrogen atom is the basis for everything. And if you go with the alchemy, we'll probably get into it a little bit later, but I think I've discovered the philosopher's stone. You'll be excited to hear about that. So in any case,
great.
Getting back to the gut, we masticate our food, we chew it and put in some enzymes, starting with our saliva. We go down into an acid bath in our tummy. in our stomach, and we go out and put in the bile and get our microbiome going in the little small intestines. Some things are coming out of it there, but it isn't until the colon that we have the specialized bacteria. It's supposed to have the specialized bacteria that actually finish splitting the hydrogens off of the hydrocarbon food that we eat. So there is hydrogen in the food that we eat. It's mostly hydrogen, just like our own bodies. But hydrogen and carbon are really bound together, really, really bound there. Hydrogen sticks to things really well. The atomic bonds, the energy to take apart those atomic bonds, takes every enzyme and catalyst that we can get. And even then, there's bacteria that are specialized in finishing that process. And now you have free hydrogen gas in your colon that then goes directly through the colon wall into your bloodstream. So your colon is actually a breathing thing that breathes similar to your lungs. In fact, if they put oxygen into the colon, they can sometimes eliminate, like people having lung problems, they can help them get oxygen just by putting it up the rectum. So in any case, so if you have gas coming out your backside and it doesn't stink, that's mostly hydrogen. If it stinks, then you're getting into the sulfides and the methane and stuff like that. So, which are incomplete digestion. If you got pretty much complete digestion, you're having hydrogen and carbon dioxide, which neither of those have an odor. So in any case, that's where we're getting our hydrogen from, is our food. And as you pointed out, things like glyphosate, antibiotics, a miracle, definitely a miracle. But while they're killing the bad bacteria, they're killing the good bacteria as well. And we need that microbiome. So, and then there's artificial sweeteners and glyphosate and all these that have just decimated those poor bacteria that we really need. So we've become hydrogen deficient because we're not getting everything out of our food that we should be. Okay. So the gut is
so
really
people
important.
should be very careful of having any ignition if they're passing hydrogen gas.
Oh man, there's so many jokes just ran through.
That reminds me of a terrible South Park episode where they were finding a new energy to power vehicles. Anyways, go ahead.
Yes,
Sorry.
absolutely. No worries, no worries. We got to have fun too. In fact, what's life worth living if you're not having some fun?
I'll tell you this, the chat is having a lot of fun today.
Okay.
A lot of Brown's gas jokes. Go ahead, George.
I believe it, yes. And now we get back to Yul Brown and Brown's gas. And that was one of those things where it was kind of nice to call it hydroxy or HHO. Hydroxy was a term invented by Alvin Crosby in New Zealand, who was in a partnership with Yul Brown at the time that Yul Brown was living in Australia. And Alvin made his own design of hydroxy machine, which he then called it the hydroxy gas to differentiate it from the Brown's gas, even though it was the same gas. So you get these people making trade names. And then there was a person in Florida by the name of Denny Klein, who has since passed away as well, who made another type of machine. He called it Aquagen, and he trade named HHO. So along with Santini, Professor Santini, he got a lot of television viewing, and millions of people saw it, so they all started calling it HHO. I called it Brown's gas because when I first learned about Brown's gas, I didn't know about William Rhodes had originally invented it, and Yul Brown in his patents had referenced William Rhodes's patents. But when I learned about it, it was called Brown's gas, and Yul Brown spent 30 plus years of his life, the last 30 plus years of his life, promoting the gas worldwide. And as an inventor, I believe in giving people credit where credit is due. Now, William Rhodes essentially tabled it and dropped it, but Yul Brown spent his life putting it together. Now, Yul Brown also tried to sue me during the time when you guys were running around with Dennis Lee and promoting the Brown's gas. Yul Brown actually sent lawyers after me to stop me from writing or selling the Brown's Gas Book 1. Because I was calling it Brown's gas, and people could see how to build a little Brown's gas electrolyzer of their own from my Brown's Gas Book 1 and Brown's Gas Book 2. But I was able to prove to his lawyers that he had already made the name public domain. He hadn't trademarked it, and I had the right to write what I wanted and I was trying to give the guy credit. And
Yeah.
I do still, even though he's
And
dead.
old world thinking, we talk about a lot, like we're moving into an open source everything society. Patents are honey traps to actually steal and hide technology by upper, echelon elite, wannabe elite, people who want to hide technology, right? So you're doing it right, George, open sourcing it, getting it out to the world so people can work on it and tinker themselves. Everybody knows that you're getting all the due credit you deserve, right? There's this weird thing where people want to hold on to the credit of the discovery and own it all. And what ends up happening with a lot of those people is they become broke themselves and shattered by the technology being stolen or them being isolated by their own need to control and hold on to it. So props to you. We're big fans of the sort of the open source aesthetic. I work in decentralized technology as well. So I really appreciate how you handle that. Just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was difficult choices to make at first because a person has a certain mindset. If you're an inventor, you patent things. That's just the way it was done, right? But the way things developed, I realized it would, and if you look on my website, you'll see I have 12 reasons why I don't patent it, because I thought about it. You think about, because you have an invention, the world does not beat path to your door if you have a better mousetrap. They don't. You have to put as much thought into the marketing of whatever it is as you did into the actual making of the invention. So good marketers are good teammates to have with inventors, if the inventor can get out of his own way. Because like Yul Brown, he was his own worst enemy. He tried to hold on to things too tightly. And he actually died from an infection in his leg that he wouldn't go to a hospital to have treated. And interestingly enough, the Brown's gas that he would worked on all of his life probably would have helped him heal. And it's just ironic how these things happen when people try to hold things in. Now,
when you open source things, it allows for other minds to come in and work on the technology with you. And if he would have been open to have a community working with him, someone like yourself could have said, hey, why don't you try putting the gas through a bubbler onto that wound or whatever. And in a weird way, karmic repercussions, from that sort of egoic mindset. That's fascinating.
Very true. So because I was in the fuel saver business, I experimented with Brown's gas as a combustion enhancement gas and did really well. That still works on automobiles today with fuel injection, electronic fuel injection. You get about a 25% increase in your fuel mileage on average, but with the Brown's gas. And I started making the water torches, which was electrolyzers large enough to provide enough gas to fuel an oxyacetylene torch, replacing acetylene with the Brown's gas. And I was doing very well with that as well. And that's part of what you guys were doing with Dennis Lee, is promoting that type of technology. And then as I was doing that in 1996, one of my water torch customers got back to me with a story that I did not believe, quite frankly. But he had a melanoma on his forehead. Okay, skin cancer, you don't fool around with. It metastasizes and goes everywhere. Anyway, he had this melanoma, and what he did was he bubbled the Brown's gas in water and then took the cotton ball with that and put it in a plastic bottle cap, just a bottle cap off of a regular bottle, taped it to his forehead, re-soaked the cotton ball a few times a day, and in 3 weeks' time, the melanoma was gone. I did not believe him. I was working with this gas as a combustible gas. I couldn't see it being healthful like that. And where did he get the idea of using Brown's gas for health anyway to do this? Where did that inspiration come? I was a Brown's gas expert. I didn't think any such thing. Oh, good Lord. In any case, I did send out, I was open enough to it. I did send out to my mailing list of several thousand people that there was a possible benefit of the Brown's gas therapeutically. And so people started to, like, they had various Brown's gas machines, they started bubbling in water and starting to get back to me with their testimonials. And it were some pretty amazing testimonials. And then there was a doctor who came up, chiropractor, excuse me, I apologize, Lloyd Jacob, came up because he was working with oxygen therapies and ozone, and he knew that Brown's gas had oxygen in it. So he thought that Brown's gas would possibly be healthful in his practice. So he got a machine. He had a machine built actually from my Brown's gas book too, because you can build your own machine from that. And and you still can. And it costs about, well, at that time, it was costing about $500 plus $1 per liter design. So if you wanted a 1,000 liter per hour machine, it was about $1,500 to build a machine at that time. Prices have gone much greater since then. But in any case, he had a guy build a machine in Spokane, Washington, and for about a year, that machine operated fine. But then it broke down. And the testimonials he was giving back were just amazing. Now, a chiropractor knows, like if you got a sore muscle, he knows where to push and manipulate. And this particular chiropractor was never able to adjust his wife. His wife, interestingly enough, I guess his wife was just too stiff for him. But when he put the Brown's gas on her spine, he was able to adjust her. And when that machine broke down, the person who had built it for him had moved away. So he called me up desperate on the phone because I was selling commercial machines at that time. You didn't need to just build your own. And saying, I'm out of business unless I get a Brown's gas machine immediately. Because when his customers, his clients, learned that they weren't going to get a Brown's gas treatment at the same time as the chiropractic treatment, they said, oh, we'll wait till you get your machine fixed. It was so beneficial, they didn't even want to come in for a chiropractic treatment unless they were also getting the Brown's gas enhancement. So he drove up that day, bought a machine, and drove back to Spokane and was back in business. Now, that particular machine has an additional factor that we can get into a little bit later with transmutation. So we'll just try to remember to get into transmutation a little bit, and we'll come back to that. So that's how I learned about Brown's gas for health initially. Now, I didn't bubble the water with the Brown's gas until 2005. They told me that in 1996. I personally didn't do it until 2005, when enough people had gotten back to me with so my customers were telling me how to do this.
That's the open source aesthetic right there, baby.
Okay.
So you were drinking, were you drinking it at that time?
I started drinking in 2005.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd get a bottle and I'd bubble it and I'd drink the water. Okay. And between 2005 and 2007, I didn't get sick. I used to get a cold or a flu 3 times a winter, and I didn't get sick. Not at all. Not even a sniffle. And I thought, this is pretty good. And that alone was enough for me to and I was doing it myself to make sure that it wouldn't harm anyone if they were drinking the water. I wanted to make sure that I did it for myself first, and then I would recommend it to people, and I did. And at that point, I'd already been making these tabletop electrolyzers I call the ER50. So I modified it slightly so that people could bubble water in that. So instead of spending thousands of dollars on a machine, just a few $100s, they'd have a machine that they could bubble the water, tabletop, and have the water to drink. So from 2007 to March of 2016, I didn't inhale the gas, because even though my customers were now asking, okay, these people are all drinking the Brown's gas, the hydrogen-rich water, Brown's gas water, and having these amazing testimonials that were coming in. And you could also use the gas on your skin and for rashes and age spots and all kinds of things that people were using it on their skin, or the bubbled water on the skin. So we had 3 different modalities. You could drink the water, you could use the water on the skin, or you could use the gas on the skin. People were asking if they could inhale the gas, and I misinformed them for years because I was used to the gas being a combustible gas, and it is. If you take this and you ignite that gas right there, there will be an explosion going back down into the hoses. The explosion won't go out into the room, but it'll go down the hose and back toward the machine, which is designed to handle that sort of thing because it is a combustible gas. Okay. So don't do that at home. If you want to fill a balloon.
Is that why my hair turned white since I've been inhaling this?
Well, if you look at my first time that
Just
I
kidding.
inhaled, you've probably seen that video on YouTube. You will see that my mustache was pure white at that time in 1996. Or sorry, 2016, excuse me. In 2016, March of 2016, when I first inhaled the gas, I had, there's a bit of a story there, but you'll see that I videotaped myself doing it at first, because again, I was doing it to see if there was going to be any harm. And I felt if there was a harm for some reason, people would at least see my stupidity. It'd be on videotape. So you could look at me there and see what I looked like then and what I look like now. I think you'll see that I look 20 years younger. Okay. And I just compare that to the pictures that I've taken, that have been taken of me over this particular time of my life. So in December of 2015, a customer sent me a video of a hydrogen bar in Korea where they were using epoch machines. I knew them to be Brown's gas machines that were made in Korea. And people would come in and have a hydrogen treatment, just like we buy a cup of coffee. And I realized at that point how stupid I was, because I knew if you mix enough hydrogen in air, it's non-combustible. So when the hydrogen is coming out here and it's mixing with the air, it's non-combustible. You can have this machine next to an open flame like a fireplace or an oven or whatever. It will not explode unless you get the flame within an inch or two of it coming out. You have a non-explosive gas. So when I inhale, I have a bunch of air sucking up into my lungs that's sucking in with the gas. So about 2% of of what I'm sucking in is the gas, of which only two-thirds of that is the hydrogen. That's what's going into my lungs and is non-combustible. So the gas itself is 100% non-toxic. There's nothing toxic about the Brown's gas. It pretty much doesn't do anything. The body does everything. It's a building block. It's a nutrition. Brown's gas doesn't kill anything. In fact, there's some theory that back when God created the planet and there was something called a firmament above the planet, that our atmosphere may have had a significant portion, less than 4%, obviously, of hydrogen in it, in the atmosphere already. And and we may have been designed to inhale the hydrogen.
There's this theory about the vapor canopy and how we might have had this super hydrogen rich atmosphere and everything grew really big.
Yes, grew big, huge, and and lived a long time, like hundreds, maybe even sometimes thousands of years.
Methuselah, yeah.
Yes, but even Adam, Adam, a first man, and several of those, you go into the begats and after Genesis, and you're going to get these people. They lived long lifespans, had lots of progeny. Go forth, be fruitful and multiply. All right. So they, getting back to our inhalation, then we have the Brown's gas. Shoot, I kind of lost the train of my thought there. Yes.
Well, you'll also explain
I got it. So
okay, go for it.
In December of 2015, that's when I first learned and realized that I could be inhaling the gas. But at that point, my life had gone sideways a few years earlier. In about 2009, my late wife got very sick, and she was battling various illnesses. But we didn't realize what the actual problem was. She actually had a severe form of lupus. So when her pancreas started to fail, we just thought it was diabetes, and we were dealing with that and various things along the line as her organs were failing. By the time December of 2015 came along, I was a 24/7 caretaker. I hadn't worked in years. All my research had been put aside, and my shop had been put in storage. I couldn't work. We were spending money. By that time, I was about $300,000 in debt, and because we did everything we could to try to help this woman, this amazing multimedia artist. She ran a Montessori school, for example, as one of the things that she had done in her past. I learned so much from her about how things really work, not science related, but more life related. So this woman, we were trying to keep her alive. And by this time, she was just skin and bones at the point where, and I had to lift her to carry her to the toilet. She couldn't even roll over in bed without assistance. She had pretty much lost her hair and her eyesight, and her body was just failing in every way that it was possible to do. So, but I knew there had to be something that we could do, and we just kept trying whatever we could to save her. And in the end, she went to the hospital in March of 2016 and died. So that was a really difficult time for me. You can't be a 24/7 caretaker for somebody that you love and not have it just really affect you badly. So for about a week or so, I couldn't even get off the couch. I never slept in our bed again. That just couldn't happen. And I decided that I needed to do something rather than just stare off into space. So I set up this ER50 that I had there for bubbling in water, and I set it up to be inhaling. And I thought, I really didn't care if I lived or died at that point. I just didn't care. My grief was so great sometimes, my chest would hurt so bad, I'd realize I literally hadn't taken a breath in a while. I'd have to consciously breathe to keep my body going.
Wow.
So in any case, I started inhaling the Brown's gas. And incidentally, that saved my life. I did not realize it at the time, but doctors have since pointed out that it's almost impossible to be despondent or depressed when you're inhaling the Brown's gas. It affects your body that way. So doctors are using the Brown's gas as a therapy for people that are depressed. So in any case, I was very depressed. So when I started inhaling, I did that video, and excuse me. The next thing that happened was I started getting testimonials back after I told people they could inhale and how to modify their machines, that there were thousands of ER50s out there at that point, how to modify their machines so they could inhale. And a lot of people, hundreds of people did. And one woman, about 3 months after this, got back in touch with me and said she had lupus symptoms, and in 3 weeks' time, they were gone. And that, remember my life with my wife for almost 10 years, we fought this disease, and she died a slow, lingering death. In 3 weeks' time, this woman's lupus symptoms were gone. Now, she didn't have the severe that my wife's did, but I had in my shop Brown's gas. God had told me about Brown's gas for therapeutic in 1996. I had the Brown's gas for that amount of time, and we never thought to use it therapeutically of all the things that we were doing. So that floored me. Well, I wasn't on the couch. I was on the floor. I could not even get off the floor at that point. This woman's testimonial literally floored me until I realized I could help people. I could make sure, to the best of my ability, that there was a Brown's gas machine in every home. And that's what I'm doing. And the testimonials that come in almost every day help me get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I work until sometimes 8 p.m. at night, doing everything I can to make sure that as many people as possible get Brown's gas in their home. Now, I can't do it myself. Again, we look back on the days when I had people lined up in the driveway in 6 weeks with the carburetor enhancer booked in advance. I can't help everybody on the planet get this absolutely amazing and needed technology. So I'm putting together a course that will help people do what I did, duplicate these AquaCure machines in their own home and sell them. The course is $10,000, so it's not free, and I've already invested $100,000 into making this course. We will have this course relatively soon, and people in their own homes can now put Brown's gas in their own communities. See, I can't serve every community. I am selling AquaCure machines worldwide, thousands of them, but it all comes back to one location on the planet. You can't do that. You can't service the machines. You can't help the people locally. You can't rent the machines. You can't make sure that people can have a low cost option. Sorry, it's but if I can teach other people how to do this and they can have their own business separate from me, this technology will at grassroots develop. We don't have to worry about the medical community saying it's okay or not. People know what results are. People tell people. I haven't advertised in all the time I've been selling these AquaCure machines. I haven't once advertised. I have spoken on podcasts like yours. I really appreciate these platforms. And that's it. That's all I've done. I've just spoken up. Mostly it's word of mouth. People who are getting results speak to their friends and family and neighbors, and they buy machines. They just come organically. The whole thing is growing. And so if we can start a bunch of other manufacturers in every country, then we don't have customs issues and supply chain issues as much and all that kind of stuff. People are developing them locally. So that's what I'm doing. In addition to helping as many people as I can personally, I'm expanding and trying to get as many other people doing it as possible. I don't need the money. I don't need to be an Elon Musk, a billionaire. I don't need to make a gigafactory in every country to build these things myself. If I can get it out there and help spread the health, but also the wealth. So they have a business. It's an essential business. If there's a lockdown or a shutdown, the people don't have to worry about the being out of business because they have a health business. They're essential, and they can make these things for friends and family. And there is no better thing than to be helping other people and getting the gratitude back from people who have been helped with these various technologies. So that's my story and my passion of why I'm doing it and what I'm doing about it. And now we can get into some other things about the Brown's gas.
Well,
go ahead.
George, thank you for sharing with that. I know it's painful, but and all I can say is God bless you, because what you've contributed from the suffering you had is definitely is obviously your purpose. So thank you. So please go on. And I was just to segue more into the technology, which I know you'll get into, and you're talking about the combustibility of hydrogen and so forth. You also have on the AquaCure, a means to control the percentage, and so forth, to make it safe and also customized to every individual. So, and then also I know you recommend giving or taking both the inhalation and drinking infused water. So if there's any way you could weight, one versus the other, if somebody were to choose one or the other, I prefer doing both, but any comments you have on that? So thanks again.
Yeah, I'll address that first. There are ailments that are best mitigated by drinking the water. And by the way, I'm not any doctor or prescribing or any of those things. So you can look on my website and see my medical disclaimer, and I encourage people to do that. So, however, scientific studies have shown that there are ailments that are best mitigated by drinking the hydrogen-rich water. And whenever I say hydrogen-rich water, I actually do the Brown's gas, because I'm not only getting the hydrogen, but the electrically expanded water as well. So anything that hydrogen-rich water can do, Brown's gas can do better. Okay, so that qualification. All right. And there are things that inhaling does best. Like you'd be drinking the water. For example, in my own case, I was drinking the water and I didn't get sick, but my neuropathies continued to, my shins were going numb, did go numb. The palm of my left hand went completely numb, and numbness was continuing. By the way, you can see a little bruise on this particular finger here. I slammed it in a door. I wasn't paying attention. And within a day, the pain was gone, and it's healing. It's very fast. I sprained my shoulder bad enough. I was pounding fence posts. 60-year-old man running around pounding fistballs. Sprained my shoulder. I knew that was going to take about 3 weeks to heal. 3 days. 3 days I had full functionality and strength back in my shoulder. It was bad sprain. That took care of that. So in any case, we shoot. I get off on so many segues, I kind of lose my thought for just a minute. Getting back to what was I talking about?
Breathing it.
Breathing, inhaling. So you're inhaling the gas, and a lot of things get mitigated there. So what I say is to do the both, because your body needs the fluid hydration of the water anyway, and then the inhaling happens. And in myself, all the time that I was drinking the water from 2005 to March of 2016, my neuropathies, my tinnitus, my eyesight, my hair, I was losing my hair and it was growing gray, what was left, or totally white. I now have gray hair and it's coming back color. I still had my heart murmur. I had a long list of things that if you go to my website, eagle-research.life, L-I-F-E. So eagle like the bird, then a hyphen mark, then research.life. And look at about me, you'll see the long list of things that I had wrong with me that were started to be mitigated as soon as I started to inhale the gas. So one of the first things that happened when I started to inhale was my psoriasis disappeared. And it didn't just disappear like it was just gone. I had thick peeling skin on my elbows, knees, and feet, or thick skin, and I just thought it was calluses. I grew up on a cattle ranch. You know, the hat is not just for show. So it started to peel off like a snake shedding its skin. This thick stuff started to peel off, and that was very disconcerting to have your skin just kind of peeling off. But underneath was baby smooth skin, brand new skin underneath. And so that psoriasis, it just disappeared. So that was one of the first things that I had noticed that was happening. And I didn't start inhaling because I thought I would get healthy. I had no clue of that whatsoever. I thought I was inhaling just to prove it was safe to inhale, so that I wouldn't be harming anyone. First, do no harm, right? So when these things started to happen, and then I started to get feeling back in the palm of my hand. I was afraid I was going to lose the use of my left hand because it was going completely numb. I started to get feeling back in my hand. And then I realized about the time that the feeling was fully back and I had full strength. Oh, by the way, arthritis as well. I had pain, a lot of pain and inflammation, and I was losing strength because of it. And now I have full strength and flexibility, absolutely pain-free everywhere. Oh man, you know, when you're getting older, you get a few pains, right? Just imagining pain-free everywhere, like when you're young and you think you're invincible. It's amazing to live.
I can say myself, after being on this for a while, I played contact sports, way too long. And so since I've been doing the Brown's gas, my body definitely wakes up a lot easier in the morning.
Yes. And you get moving and away you go. You get
I decided to start surfing every day at 44 and get the hip pain and the back pain. And I take the little cup and I hit certain areas, with that attachment, and as well as doing the air stuff. And I feel like a spring chicken, I got to say. Like, I feel better than I did in my 20s, in my 40s right now. And I attribute a lot to hitting this every day. So thank you.
Yes. And the younger, I want people, the younger as possible, to start on it. Like, even if they're infants. And the AquaCure is designed, as you pointed out, to be able to adjust the gas volume down to be safe for infants inhaling as well, because you don't want to inhale a mixture that contains more than 4.7% hydrogen, because that's potentially explosive. Okay, so the sooner you can do it, because there was mouse studies, rodent studies, mice and rats so far, that have shown that when they're given the Brown's gas at a 2% mixture, they have like a little terrarium, so that they don't have to put a little face mask on every mouse. That's in the atmosphere, like maybe it used to be back in the firmament days. So in any case, the mice would live a minimum of 30%. The was 30% longer, healthful longer. And then mostly it was up in the 50%. And one particular rat study, I don't know how far they were going, but well beyond 50%. The study ended, they euthanized the rats because they wouldn't die. So the sooner you can start, the better off it'll be. But in any case, even older, getting rid of a lot of the ailments that have happened because of the lack of hydrogen. So we get down to what was happening with myself. Again, my organs healed in that I had a heart murmur for 50 years. I went for a physical, and I told the doctor, a new physical, I was in a new town and getting a new doctor. I told the doctor I had a heart murmur. He says, "No, you don't." That was pretty amazing. So I no longer had to take antibiotics before getting dental work done. And my dentist tells me, I wish all my patients were like you, not because I have bad teeth, but because I still have all my original teeth without any cavities or anything. Now I got a good start back on the ranch because I was eating natural foods and not having a lot of unnatural things going into my body, which I won't bother going into right at the moment. But I got a good start and I managed to maintain it. So that was good. But so your organs start to heal, and then as mine did, and then my immune system was turning back on, and I got rid of warts. I had a plantar's wart on my foot. I know, kind of gross, and it was gross for me too. And hand warts. I had hand warts almost all my life, and I got them from my best friend, and you just pass things among each other. They're gone. So those are viruses. And so my body immune system was strong enough to get rid of these viruses that I had hanging around all my life, virtually. And then my scars disappeared. Now all of this happened over months of time. And I think it was about 3 years in, I realized that I was washing my toes in the shower, like stork standing on one foot, washing my toes without leaning against the wall. It was before I'd lost my balance at some point. I'd have to lean against the wall in order to do that. And I realized, hey, I'm freestanding here. And so it continues over time to help the body continue to heal and get better. So to get back to it, some things are best with the drinking. And there are people like Tyler DeBaron, who is a hydrogen expert. And you could go to his website, molecularhydrogeninstitute.com. And he promotes hydrogen tablets and a few things like that. He's very much into the hydrogen. He's not knocking Brown's gas, but he says there's not enough scientific evidence, and his reputation is too great. He can't promote it until he sees more on that. But in any case, Tyler DeBaron consulted with me back in 2007 when I was first starting and he was an intern back then, not a doctor. And before he went to Japan and did his residency and such, and came back as a doctor specializing in hydrogen. So he consulted with me back then, and so we know each other. And I would say that he's probably the best molecular hydrogen website on the internet, as far as that's concerned, for looking after what's actually happening in a lot of cases. And Dr. McCullough really likes Tyler DeBaron as well. And Tyler DeBaron is go ahead.
But finish your thought about Tyler.
Oh, he's one of the things that Mercola pointed out is that Tyler lifts like 400 bench presses, like 400 pounds. He's really strong.
Great.
We all walk the talk here. We do our thing.
Amazing. I wanted to make a quick comment, something I didn't learn in medical school, but have learned since, which I believe is very valid, is that the human body, like all things in this universe, operates on two poles. And if you look at our body in that perspective, we have the neurological pole and the metabolic pole, and we could really get into the weeds with that. But the point is the lungs are more connected or akin to the neurological pole. And then, maybe what we drink with the water, is going to have more of an effect on the metabolic pole and certain symptoms that derive from there. So perhaps as you're inhaling, as I'm also experiencing too, I have a few little neuropathies in a couple toes, which are slowly disappearing. but perhaps when you inhale it, since it's more, closely related to what's happening in the lungs and the inhalation, it's going to affect the nervous system and those kinds of symptoms more. I don't know, but I'm just trying to connect some dots here from my own understanding.
Yes. Well, the neuropathy obviously has to do with the nerves. And another indication was that I had tinnitus. My tinnitus was, or tinnitus, whichever way a person pronounces it, was so great that I had trouble hearing people speak because the ringing in my ears. And my ear, nose, and throat doctor that I went to said that the tinnitus wasn't actually in the ear, it was in the brain. And the biggest nerve center in your body is, of course, between your ears. So at the same time as my neuropathies were healing, my tinnitus was gradually fading. So it was the nerves, it wasn't only healing the nerves in the actual physical body, but in my brain as well. And now my tinnitus is almost non-existent. It did take a lot longer for that, except for when I'm stressed. If I'm stressed, I can hear that little hiss happening. So these days, I know if I hear that little hiss, it's like a little voice in the back of my head saying, hey, breathe, look around, enjoy yourself. Don't stress so much. So, and then it fades away as soon as I pay attention to it that way. It's good. So those are good. And then we get into the things like the Alzheimer's and various neurological diseases that have to do with the nerves. The Parkinson's, for example. There's been a lot of people helped. It's one of the first things that the people that were inhaling noticed with the Parkinson's, that the tremors would start to go away. And it just, over time, it just gets better and better. The first thing it does is stop any progression. And then gradually over time, because the body knows how to heal itself. Any doctor, I'm sure you're aware, I think you would agree, will say that the doctors don't actually heal anyone. Best they can do is put a body in a condition that it can heal itself. And then the body actually heals itself. So that's what we're trying to do, is make sure there's enough nutrition, the proper nutrition, and then the body has an intelligence inside that knows what to do. that puts it all together the way it needs to be, if it can. Sometimes you're too far over the edge.
The only caveat I've seen, that I've read as far as Parkinson's folks having help, which is astounding to me. It seems to be almost universal, but they might just have to inhale at, more prolonged durations. And then also with that in mind, maybe you could segue into duration versus a higher concentration setting on your machine.
Could I ask one thing about the tinnitus real quick, George? Did you have amalgam fillings by chance?
I did when I was younger, but many years ago, I had them taken out and put the ceramic ones in. Okay. So, it was just two. I didn't have much. But that is a good point. It could have been that I had an accumulation of the mercury and all of that from that. And I have no doubt that not continuing to poison myself was a factor. Yes.
And also it's interesting with the tinnitus, it's also often a low hertz resonance, a high pitched resonance that maybe when you're integrating certain frequencies through the Brown's gas, you're regulating that and maybe bringing back the right kind of harmonics to fix those sort of resonant, maybe frequencies that are somehow stuck in there or something. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. The science doesn't know a lot about tinnitus. That's the first part of tinnitus is, or anything having to do with the ears, you have the air element that is picking up reverberations externally. And that is a matter of the sensory system. Again, we go back to the nerves. And then that reverberation actually bounces off of the fluid-filled little chambers within the ear. And then that goes to another whole level of our being. And that's a different story. But there's a lot going on there. And that also makes sense, why, that would have a great affinity towards brown gas being a help. And anyway, any comments you have, about the dosage versus prolonged inhalation for first with
something like, Parkinson's, and then just for the rest of us that are, using it for general use?
Yes, very good question. First of all, virtually all the really heavy ailments like cancer and Parkinson's, and when you have a serious ailment, the longer the better. Now, there's a study, you can go to my .live website, the eagle-research.live website. There's a study in there that is a woman who had lung cancer that had metastasized to her brain. And she decided to do Brown's gas. They didn't call it Brown's gas. It was just a hydrogen oxygen mixture. Only, no other treatment whatsoever. No, nothing. I won't go into all the other treatments. I just say she did Brown's gas only for a minimum of 8 hours a day. Now, this would be the same as if a person, for the generally speaking, would just inhale at night. So you put on the cannulas as if you were inhaling oxygen. Like some people have to inhale oxygen at night. Just put on the cannulas as if you were inhaling the oxygen, and do it at night. So you can get those hours in without disturbing your day. Many people don't sit at a computer like I do 8 hours a day. So I inhale a minimum of 4 hours, absolutely minimum, and quite often 8 hours a day, just because I'm either here or down at my bedside. We do have multiple machines in my house too, but of course I build them, so it's not that big of a deal. And my wife is using it concurrently with myself as well, and she had allergies, really, really bad allergies and asthma, and that has pretty much been mitigated with the Brown's gas. So she doesn't have to take all that she used to have to take medication just to live a day. She couldn't go through a day unless she had her medication. It was that bad. So in any case, dosage wise, getting into the dosage, you don't want to inhale a mixture that is greater than 4.7% hydrogen for two reasons. First of all, it's dangerous. You could possibly, if it ignites, and a static electric spark hitting the hose can ignite the gas inside with something called conductive trans. Anyway, it makes a bit of a voltage potential that the gas itself ignites inside the hose if a spark hits the outside. I keep thinking conductive transference, but that's not the right terminology. In any case, that's what happens. So you could be on your couch and you have the type of clothing on or dry air in the room or something, a static electricity, it hits the hose, it could go bang. Now, if you're inhaling a mixture that's potentially explosive, that bang can go down into your lungs. Not a good thing. But if you are, and there have been people who have had explosions like that I'm talking about 5 that I know of, and it's rare. We're talking thousands of people over years of time. It's happened 5 times, but it can happen. That's the point. So you want to be safe and inhale less than a 2% mixture, or 2% or less, because most of the scientific studies that are showing hydrogen therapeutic efficaciousness are using a 2% mixture, partially because of this non-explosive factor. And universally, 100%, they're getting gains from that. So there's no reason scientifically to inhale more of a mixture. And when you get back into measuring the hydrogen in the blood, and this is where dosage comes into it, as soon as the blood is saturated with hydrogen, just the same as it's saturated with carbon dioxide or any other gas, any excess is exhaled. So putting more than your body needs into your inhaled breath does absolutely nothing whatsoever, because it's simply exhaled on the resulting exhaled breath. So all you have to do is get the blood saturated and then keep it saturated for the duration thing. And a 1% mixture. So if you look in my Brown's gas, the AquaCure operation manual, there'll be charts there. So you could set the machine for a 2% mixture. Just go with half of that. So for myself, 38% of the Brown's gas of the AquaCure production gives me a 2% mixture. So if I'm inhaling at night or for long hours, I can turn that down to would that be at 16 or 18% and maintain my my inhalation percentage. My blood maintains that saturation, and I'm using less water, less electricity. There's less, I have to maintain the machine. It's all more efficient and just as therapeutic as if you're having a richer mixture. So there's no reason to have a rich mixture and a few reasons not to have a rich mixture over 2%. So, and then as far as duration goes, there's some people that say, because Brown's gas is like nutrition and eating, and we eat like 3 times a day, often. You got your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, when I'm inhaling a Brown's gas, I only eat once a day. If I was to eat 3 times a day, I would get fat because my body doesn't need all of that extra carbohydrates. When I'm inhaling, a large portion of the nutrition I get is the hydrogen from the Brown's gas, which is part of the reason you eat food is to get the hydrogen, right? Your major macronutrient. So I discovered that I actually am a little bit overweight. I need to eat a little less than I'm eating right now, but I love food. I really do. I just love eating. I don't want to eat less, but I have to eat smaller portions because I get all the nutrition I need. Now, of course, I go with, since I'm eating not a lot of food, I go with the best organic food that I can, and I watch my nutrition. I don't take very much supplementation. If I feel that I'm around people that have that are sick, then I'll take a little extra vitamin D and zinc and C and maybe some echinacea or something, just to keep my immune system boosted right up there. And I haven't gotten sick since 2005. I haven't gotten sick. There's been 3 times when I got essentially the sniffles, and one time was bad enough. I was feeling like a headache, but that was it. It was gone the next day in all cases. And interestingly enough, the last 2 times were after I had traveled on an airplane for several hours. One time I'd traveled to Mexico, and the other time I'd traveled to Germany. And in both those times after traveling on the airplane, I got a sniffle. And so now if I was to travel on an airplane, in fact, I just did. I flew a few hours on an airplane. I spruce up my immune system before I get on the plane, and away we go. So dosage and duration. You don't need more than a 2% mixture. Some people say intermittent inhalation is better than one long time. I say whatever works for you. Every person, every body is different. Every ailment is different. Every lifestyle is different. Some people will be helped most by intermittent inhalation, and some people will be helped most by a long duration. And I would say simply experiment, because we don't know. This is almost like a leading edge science. We can show the results, but we don't, there's just too many variables that we don't know yet. So
but either way, there's really no downside.
There's no downside, zero downside. All we're looking for is what works best for somebody. Anything will probably work. We just need to know, people figure out what works best. Now, the only caveat that I would say is that imagine you are starting on the Brown's gas. Imagine that you were on a fast for a month, okay? A water fast. You didn't eat any food, just water for a month. You wouldn't break a fast like that with a 7-course meal. You would definitely get sick and puke up that food, okay? You'd start with a little soup and get your body used to having nutrition going down there again. That's how some people have to approach the Brown's gas. Some people can just put it on and inhale for hours and there's no problem at all. But watch for what I call this negative weirdness. It isn't bad, it just is. When your body gets the nutrition and it hasn't had the nutrition, it may just suddenly grab that and start doing whatever it can with it while it's got it, because the hydrogen isn't going to stick around in your body. There are some
another way to think about that is, when we're hydrogen deficient, all of our bodily processes and functions are compromised, including our elimination systems. So if you start too much too soon, then it can really expedite that too much too soon and maybe just inundate you with what we call the Herxheimer effect, with too many toxins in the bloodstream all at once that are going to make you feel bad.
Yeah, there are definitely effects that make a person feel bad if the body is trying to do too many things at one time, chelating, getting rid of minerals or toxins, all the kind of things that can be happening. And also, for example, if you get a headache, there's some people that start inhaling and they get a headache. I say that's a good thing, because the body is trying to heal something in your head. And if there's any part of your body you want working well, it's your head. So just what I say is cut back when you find these negative weirdness, cut back till it's acceptable. Don't stop. Just have a little bit. Now, again, I'm not prescribing. I'm saying what I would do. Again, what I would do is simply cut back until that is acceptable, and then gradually increase again as the body gets used to the having the nutrition that it needs. And as you heal, you'll find you can do more and more. And once you're doing about an hour a day or 3 20-minute segments, if you're doing it pulse, I know of no one that can't just inhale all night or whatever the case may be. By the time you can do an hour a day with no negative weirdness, it seems, and I'm talking about based on thousands of people out there doing the machines now, it seems you're fine. You can go with it. So that was the one negative caveat. Other than that, there's no downside. Every single scientific study has, in fact, it's just the opposite. They'll be studying something, some sort of ailment, and the study will note that several of the people had all these other positive things happen to them. They didn't have the negative side effects, they had the positive. And incidentally, if you look on the television, we get a lot of commercials, pharmaceuticals, about various ailments that people can take pills or whatever for, drugs. And virtually every single one of those, if you had the Brown's gas, you don't need that drug. People that are on heart medication for blood pressure, I have a best friend that is, he's about 10 years older than I am. So he's like 87. And he has to be on blood pressure medication unless he's inhaling the Brown's gas. But within 3 days of inhaling, he doesn't need to have the medication. If he stops inhaling, which he has occasionally, within 3 days, it builds back up again to where he would need the medication again. So that gives you an idea of how that's helping him with his particular ailment.
And in my practice, when I was working with people on medication, since I work more of a, holistic way, and if they were seeing medical doctors, and getting prescriptions, I would always have them go back periodically once they were under my care and get retested, people with thyroid meds and things. And they'd usually come back and say, well, my doc said I don't have to take as much anymore. And that was a real safe way for people to kind of wean off of drugs, and just create a little bit of a nexus between not needing them at all.
Yes. And it's important actually that they keep testing, because they could end up taking too much of the drug if they don't need it as much. Yeah, exactly. So that is one thing a person needs to watch for. It's good that you pointed that out. When you're inhaling the Brown's gas and you need less medication, just keep testing so that that goes on that. So the other thing that Mike was talking about was frequencies, and there's a whole lot of things having to do with frequencies that frankly I do not understand. I built the AquaCure so that you could vary the frequency that was impressed on the water and the gas that's coming out, and it does seem to have an effect, but I am not a frequency expert. I'll just say that up front. But anybody that wants to can go on the internet and look at the various frequencies that you can impress, and that also seems to help heal the ailments. There's frequencies that you can do for any particular ailment, and that does seem to help. So if people send me an email, you can use the contact us page on the website, and it'll send an email directly to me and ask for that adjusting frequencies document I have. It'll tell people how to adjust the frequencies on the AquaCure more than the operation manual does, just for the simple frequencies. And I give a bunch of references to online things that people can go and reference the actual experts on frequencies. So
I'm really happy you added that feature, and I make great use of it with a lot of work I do in that realm as well. So it's very useful and can make things even more powerful, I think.
I agree, and a lot of the customers and that of my customers agree as well. So I'm really glad I could, and I did, because I'm a good inventor and I could do it. and I rubbed shoulders with alternative medicine. I realized I probably should do it, so I did do it, and it's working out really well. And we can go back
Interesting to kind of match those up with the rife frequencies,
yes,
the royal rife, and see if those align well in terms of the end effects people are getting.
yes, exactly, and Sollegio frequencies and
Mhm.
all of those. Yes, yeah. There's been a lot of art forms and frequencies over the years, and so many technologies have been developed and lost for various reasons. I hope, and this is one of the things where open source really helps as well. Like if we can spread this around, like right at the moment, most of what I know, if I disappeared, that'd be it. It'd be gone again. So if I can spread that knowledge around, then when I leave the planet and go on to whatever happens next, at least the technology is helping people and stays behind. So it's really good. All right, so I wanted to get a little bit more, a quick little thing. You guys know Russell Anderson and the primary water stuff that's going on. And we have right at the moment 4 different what I call protocols with the AquaCure. You can inhale the gas, you can drink the water, you can put the gas on the skin, or you can put the water on the skin. So there's the 4 different protocols that help people with their various ailments. There's 2 more protocols that can be done with the Brown's gas, with the AquaCure. Every AquaCure I've ever sold has these additional protocol capability built in. And so the first one is deuterium depleted water. Now you need an additional attachment that goes with the AquaCure to do that, and I'm going to be developing it once I get this course made and more people out there developing the machines. I can go back into my lab and finish the commercial versions of what I'm telling you about now. I've already experimentally done all this. It's all been proven and duplicated elsewhere. So people who are drinking deuterium depleted water and paying a whole lot for that money for that water right now can make it with the gas coming out of the AquaCure, because when you burn the gas, it turns back into water, and that water is light water. It's deuterium depleted. There's no heavy water in it, so that you're just literally making the new water, deuterium depleted water. So that's protocol 5. And then protocol 6 gets into something that I call new water. And this is really exciting. And we really don't have enough time to cover this subject entirely, but it segues back into what Lloyd Jacob was doing, the chiropractor I was talking about, and transmutation. So, and maintenance on the AquaCure. People are going to notice when they're using the AquaCure that it makes a sludge inside, and that sludge needs to be periodically rinsed out. So people turn the machine over and pour the electrolyte solution out into a pot or a jar, and then rinse several times the machine with hot water to get rid of this sludge that's in there, and then they can pour the electrolyte solution back in, the clarified solution. It'll be a slight yellow tint once it gets conditioned, and then they're good to go again. That sludge, it turns out, is a byproduct of the Brown's gas production. Lloyd Jacob, when he bought the machine from me, the ER 1200 water torch that then he was using to help in his chiropractic, he would operate that machine for like 8 hours a day. And every year he would bring the machine back to me. I'd take the end plate off and take out all the plates and clean out all the sludge together for him. And as a matter of interest, I just saved that sludge. Most of the times I just poured it down the sink, but or drain or whatever. But in this, and we analyzed that and found that it contained all of the metals that the electrodes were made of. It was stainless steel electrodes, so we had the nickel, the iron, chromium, all of these various metals were in that sludge. Now, that machine, over years of time, had never had anything put into it but distilled water. And the plates were stainless steel. They were 19 pounds, coincidentally, when they were new. And they were still 19 pounds when I put them back in the last time the machine went down to Lloyd Jacob. So the plates did not disintegrate and make the sludge. The sludge was formed spontaneously in the solution from the production of the Brown's gas. And and every AquaCure does the same thing. So this is a transmutation thing that is happening essentially from the God molecule, from the water, from the hydrogen. It's one of the ways that we're showing actual transmutation happening without nuclear reactors or anything like that. So that is important. Now, when you take that new water, the new water itself, you've burned the gas. There's a fellow by the name of Joseph Bender, and Norman Wooten was an inventor working with him at the time in a company called Rainfresh down south, New Mexico type area. I forget exactly. And they were making a lot of this new water using the water torch. And I happen to have the bottle that they were putting the new water in right here. And you can't really see it, but there's a little, well, maybe you can a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of white sludge down there. Okay. So this particular bottle was sitting next to this bottle, which had 50 different nutrients in it. These kind of bottles, it was called Optimum. And what you do is you take a shot glass of this mineral mixture and drink it down every day. Supposedly it gets just something they noticed. They set it on the shelf so the sunshine was shining through this bottle. They noticed that the bottle with the new water, which had only hydrogen and oxygen ever put into it, pure H2O, was forming a sediment. And they got approximately 10 ounces of sediment out of that new water. They analyzed it and they found every one of those 50 minerals in that sediment. Again,
So, George, just a quick comment. In my chemistry lab, I can take filtered rainwater, which is essentially distilled water. It's filtered, so there's no contaminants in it. And I can put it through a very lengthy process over time and create 12 different factions of that same water, nothing ever added. And I will be able to recover crystals from some of those factions. And I can also measure all 12 different portions of the water that are just nothing but rainwater, nothing ever added. And each one of them will have differences that you can actually measure, different properties associated with each of those. So that's where I really believe when we bring old school alchemy into it, which is hardcore chemistry. And if we can put our heads together with people like you that have the engineering knowledge, which I don't, we can really come up with some pretty fun stuff.
yes. And we have Luc Montier. I'm sure you're aware of him. And are you aware of the experiments that he was doing where he was sending information frequencies from one location to another, and the second location would start to form the same DNA, for example, that was in the original container. So
he was heavily attacked for this sort of work because the idea of water having memory was anathema to mainstream science.
Yes, there is much we don't know about water.
And of course, our body is.
Go ahead, Ver.
No, I was just going to say, of course, our body is mostly water. And Mike's heard, and our audience has heard me talk about experiments I did with microscopy. I'd put a slide of somebody's blood that I just took out of the body up on a screen, and then work on that body with different techniques. And the blood on the screen, even though it's no longer in the body, would go through all sorts of changes relative to what I was doing on the body over to the side. And I'm convinced, water is the transmitting utility for those informational fields.
Yes. So what was happening was you were working on blood in the body, and that blood was still connected to the blood outside the body enough that it would change. Yes.
Every time.
There's been so many experiments that collaborate that sort of effect. You've heard of the 100 monkey syndrome?
Yeah.
Or effect?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yes. So when enough, and the telephone was invented in two continents at essentially the same time, within a very short time of each other. They couldn't get a ship across the ocean fast enough that these two technologies were developed. Like it's funny, if they had a wire, they could have just picked up the telephone and talked to each other.
and Spanish flu somehow came on really remote islands with no visitation, where nobody was there. There's this resonance idea, right, of everything connected probably through this structured water. I was actually going to even open up this whole chat with, what is water? What's your definition of water? Because it's much more than H2O, right? The chemistry is just a very modern scientism sort of, personification of what the actual qualities of water is as this sort of living consciousness element. And it's very exciting to see, thanks to Jerry Pollock and your work and all these other scientists that are on the fringe, quote unquote fringe, are really starting to see that water is much more magical than we ever thought.
Yes, thanks for reminding me about Professor Pollock. His work, absolutely astounding. I've written personally to the University of Washington and suggested that they nominate him for a Nobel Prize, because the exclusion zone, what they call water, it's actually a gel, H3O2 negative, is in our bodies, and the Brown's gas enhances it. Brown's gas specifically, not hydrogen. Okay, I worked with the University of Washington. We had a study over there. They gave me a grad student and the labs and stuff, and we worked with them. We discovered that the Brown's gas enhances this exclusion zone gel. It more than doubles it. In fact, I don't have it right here, but I have a drinking water jar that I haven't never bothered to clean for years. And it's built up a film of this gel right inside it. So you can actually see it with your eyes. Usually the exclusion zone gel is microscopic. You have to look at it with a microscope to see just a few thousandths of an inch when it's being made. But literally, the exclusion zone gel is why we're able to be alive. Just a quick little thing. First of all, it's very slippery, and it coats the outside of every red blood cell and the inside of every artery, capillary, and vein. So as the red blood cells start to try to slide through, and it's negatively charged. So you have a negative charge repelling a negative charge. So in addition to the slipperiness of the gel itself, you have these negative charges repelling, which is very important, because when a red blood cell tries to go through a capillary, the capillaries can actually be only half the size of the red blood cell. They have to squeeze down like a sausage to get squeezed through there, okay? And if there was any friction whatsoever, our blood would just seize up and stop moving, and we couldn't possibly live. Plus, we've got hundreds of thousands of miles of capillaries in our body. How do we know that how does the body know to get red blood cells evenly to all the parts of your body? So usually, if anybody knows fluid dynamics, they know that liquids will always take the path of least resistance. So they'll go the easiest way and go right back to the heart, for example, and your extremities wouldn't get all the oxygen and everything it needs. Well, it turns out that when you have a microtube with the easy gel in it, it spontaneously starts to flow fluid with no external input, relevant input that you necessarily just see. So it spontaneously starts to flow. So our heart, they've theorized that our heart would have to have thousands of PSI pressure to push through these hundreds of thousands of miles of capillaries, but the capillaries themselves flow the blood. So it's not only essentially zero resistance, it's a positive flow when you get into the capillaries. So when you add these things together, plus a whole bunch of other things that the Easy Gel has, like it plumps our cells and a lot of those kind of things. When you add all that together, you find that this is probably one of the most important discoveries mankind has ever had. And it spontaneously forms from water. All you need is a hydrophilic surface and pure water. Well, it doesn't have to be pure, because this is what's called exclusion zone, right? The reason it's called exclusion zone is because it excludes all the impurities. You end up with this gel that's pure against the hydrophilic surface. And
this
all you need,
I was just going to say, in this gel too, when you understand it, really, I think this proves what I feel is an archaic theory about cell membranes and, transport pores, between the exterior and interior of the cell and so forth, which is kind of nonsense if you really think about that. And explains more how cells work with exactly what you're talking about, and how energy as well as information is transferred on the instant, and simultaneously every cell of the body knows what's going on. Even Guyton's physiology, used to talk about that simultaneous awareness of every cell in the body, which long ago when I was in school used to make me just wonder about that. But now we're actually getting an understanding of why that happens, and not because of messaging systems on cell membranes, which I don't even think exist.
Yeah, this is astonishing. So we have a system that does that, and now we get back to the Brown's gas again. The Brown's gas has the hydrogen, oxygen, and which the easy gel is made of hydrogen and oxygen, but it also has the electrically expanded water, which adds a bunch of electrons. And the easy gel is negatively charged, which they're already theorizing and experimenting with, making essentially living batteries, where there's no moving parts, and it's very simple. We just put an electrode against the negative charge surface and another electrode out into the positively charged, relatively speaking, solution, and you can have electron flow in that. So we've got, when you put the Brown's gas in the water, the easy gel expands. So people that are having problems with blood circulation and all of that, that's one of the reasons why the Brown's gas helps, is because they're expanding this easy gel in their body, everywhere in their body. So their circulatory system works better in just about every way that there is. So in addition to the body, Brown's gas providing the nutrition it needs, it actually can help directly. And the electrons actually help directly in another way, because there's something called oxidative cascade. When the body doesn't have enough electrons, you have molecules or cells grabbing electrons from something else, which then becomes electron deficient, burned, if you will, oxidized. And that goes around and grabs an electron from something else. And this chain just happens. Whereas if you have something come in like earthing and grounding, any way you can get electrons into the body, Brown's gas being one of them, then it gives those electrons to what it's needed, and it just stops that process. So inflammation and all of these damage to organs and stuff stop. It's like you stop the damage, and then it goes on from there. Yeah.
I see a future where we have highways powered by this exclusion zone gel, where everyone's just slipping through using electrical charges. Really, we're talking about the electric universe here, right? I mean, everything's electrical, and what really electricity even is, and how that relates to the entire cosmos. It's really exciting that this is all starting to finally come to light. I mean, there started this talk with Walter Russell, mentioning Walter Russell, who was talking about this in the 1920s. And as above, so below, we're seeing what's inside us we can apply to literally the engineering of our, how our future transportation can work. It's pretty wild stuff. George, this has been an absolutely brilliant talk, and we're barely scratching the surface, to be honest. Like, in Alfacast, we like to go deep, but we'd love to have you come back on, talk about the resonance of the frequencies and related to Brown's gas, and how that relates to what electricity is, and how we can further start to use this for transmutation, which is a very exciting idea, right? Literally, you've talked about morphing and changing even certain elements, stones, etc., using Brown's gas, how this can be implemented in new technologies, and then, of course, going deeper into the health aspects. I mean, this is such a huge subject. We could speak for hours and hours on.
Yeah, George, there's so much more I'd like to talk to you about, but we want to respect your time. We know you have other engagements. And, I believe that we're right at that 100th monkey moment here. And people like yourself are certainly bringing that moment forward. And I really appreciate and want to thank you for being with us and everything you're doing on behalf of all of us. So thank you so much. That being said, any final thoughts?
Well, a couple, three actually. First, four. first, thank you for being on this platform and my being able to help so many more people. I am very grateful for that. Second, I have a lifetime warranty on the AquaCure machine. So anything that goes wrong with it, that's a manufacturer error, we pay for the shipping, the labor, and the parts to fix it, no additional cost to the customer. And I have a satisfaction guarantee, a 1-year satisfaction guarantee, because I want to help people. And some things take a while to mitigate. So if I can't guarantee that there'll be any kind of result or you get any kind of result, I can't prescribe, I can't do any of those kind of things. But what I can say is that you'll be satisfied, or you can return the machine back to us and we'll refund your purchase price for a year. So that takes care of that. And the fourth thing is, I think you guys have a coupon code, don't you? That people can help.
We do.
I
if
have
you can
that.
tell people how to go ahead, Mike. You do this.
I have that pinned in the current live chat. It's also in the show notes. Use the coupon code Alfa Vedic, Alpha ALFAVEDIC for a sizable discount. And the direct link to the machine right there is eagle-research.com/product. And then I have it /AC50, the AC50. And people have already been buying it through us for months. We've been promoting it, and we've been getting great testimonials back. We'll send you more, George, as they come in, or guys send them directly to George. The more that we crowdsource this information and decentralize it and get it out, the better. And that's really exciting, George, that you're opening this up to this sort of course so people can learn how to make the machines themselves, resell them, and create businesses out of healing, which is what we're all about.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really excited to come back at some point and talk more about all the other permutations of this. And also, if people have questions that you guys can gather, and I love answering questions, we can talk about those and answer those in a future time as well.
Amazing.
Future economy, the future economy is obviously in the trades, from what I see, people getting back into the trades, and in healing the planet, healing ourselves, healing the economy, healing the social structure. Healing is going to be the economy of now and the future. So you're right there, George, in the thick of it. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this talk. If you did, please give us the thumbs up, give it a share with your friends and family. That really helps us get this information out. This will also be going out as an audio podcast. It's on Spotify and iTunes and all those things. Podbean is a great way to download it and share it. And of course, this will be up on Chordle. This will be up on, this goes up on Odyssey and other platforms that cannot censor it. So please support us there, unite.live as well, Sayer G's platform. And please go to George's website, support him by buying one of these products, support your own health. And that, once again, is all in the show notes below, eagle-research.com. Thanks again for joining us today. And please remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something, go for a hike, get into Mother Nature. She's our best teacher and friend. Go show her some love. We love you, and we'll see you next week for Howdy Mikowski, going in deep into his new book, Plato's Cave. And of course, we'll touch on the World's Fairs and Tartary and all that fun stuff. So we'll see you next Thursday with Howdy. Cheers, guys.